So welcome to one-shot overview of OG Raid Helper. This is an add-on that I developed because I saw a need to be able to organize raids beforehand and be able to make dynamic changes in the middle of raid quickly and easily, so you can assign your tanks where your tanks need to be, your healers where your healers need to be, DPS, etc. Especially for the more complex encounters, but it's something that will benefit raiders of all levels. So the first thing you're going to want to do after you've installed the add-on from the GitHub using something like the Git Add-on Manager is go ahead and open this interface up and click on the Share button. In the add-on folder, you will find a file named defaults.txt. Open it, Control A, Control C to copy everything, click in here and hit Control V to paste. You will end up with something that looks like this. This is the export that I pasted into the defaults, and then you hit the import button and it will make your default data be there. Now that default data is based off of my guild and my needs, so it isn't necessarily what you need, but it'll give you an idea of what you are capable of doing here. Now the basic interface here is you've got a ready check button. This will do a ready check no matter who is the raid leader, as long as the raid leader is also running the app. The RA button is your re-announce. We'll get into what an announcement is later. This minimizes this interface or opens this interface, and the lock button so you can drag or leave this locked so it doesn't move around on you. In the expanded version of this interface, you've got the roles button. The roles is where you see the people that are in your raid. If you hit poll, it'll ask people what class they are. It'll ask for tanks to say plus in raid, then it'll ask healers to say plus in raid, and so on. If you only want to poll one class, you just click on the header instead of the poll button, and it'll do that poll just for tanks or just for healers. If somebody answers healers and they're actually a tank and they were just too slow, you just drag them from one window to the other. In fact, let me convert this to a raid, and you can see it's just that easy. If you hit tanks, and then if I put a plus in raid, it moves me over there. But I'm not supposed to be there, so it moved me back. It's that easy. That's all this interface is for. It's to get an idea who does what in your current raid composition. That data is used elsewhere in the application. If you look at encounters, you've got two options, manage and setup. If you're going to use the package out of the box with what I've set up, you don't even need to look at setup, but we're going to go over that interface. In here, you've got your list of raids. If you want to add a new raid, you can click it here. So we can add ZG. We want ZG up above these other ones, so then you can move it up or down. And if you decide you don't want it there, you can delete it. This window down here is where your encounters are. So you can see here that for AQ40, I've set up encounters for Trash, Skyrim, Bug Trio, and Cthulhu. There's obviously more. I haven't gotten that far yet. Looking at Molten Core, I've got pretty much everything covered here. Same with BWL. Now, when you're looking at an encounter, you've got different roles that those encounters need. Looking at Incendus, for example, you have a main tank and an add tank. The main tank is one player who tanks Incendus. The add tank is one player. Actually, I've set this up for two players to pick up the adds, so you can tell your tanks you're going to pick up the adds and tank them. That's all that's for. You've got different controls in here. Show raid icons will make it to where you can show the raid icons. So if it's an encounter where you're assigning icons to the players, or you're assigning icons to the targets and you want the tanks to know which target to attack, you tell it to show those. Allow other roles is a feature that allows them to be assigned to more than one role in the auto assign feature. We'll get into that later. The show assignments. Assignments are similar to raid icons, except they're numerical. They're 1 through 10. Those are used for encounters like Cthulhu, where you've got zones 1 through 8. You need to spread people out. The mark player is used for if you're going to mark the player instead of the NPC. The player count is how many people could potentially be in that role. So like if it's off tanks, it could be 2 or 3 or 8 or however many you want. If it's healers, it could be 6 or 4 or whatever. And then the default player roles. This is for when you're populating it from the window, which list of players it'll pull from. So for a main tank, we're typically going to want tanks. They might be somebody in melee. You can change to that at the time of selecting it. It's just one menu farther away. So that's the basics of the encounter setup. most of the meat of this should never need touched once it's set up in the defaults. If you go back to encounters and go to manage, this is where the magic really happens. Looking in here, again, we're going to go back to BWL and Incendus. It's a very simple encounter. You've got one tank. We've got that assigned to Droob. And over here we have our ad tanks, and we're going to assign that to Tank Me Daddy and Hooligans Cha. You'll notice that Droob and Hooligans Cha are both white. That's because they're not currently online, they're not currently in raid, so I don't have class data for them. If I were to click the auto assign button, it will try to fill these roles from within who's currently in the raid. So you'll notice that Tank Me Daddy got assigned, but the ad tanks didn't because there's nobody else on that's in the raid. Main tank is not set to be somebody who can also tank ads. They aren't allowed other roles, so they don't appear. Tank Me doesn't appear in both sides. If you look at this, if you're trying to do planning ahead of time, instead of using the auto, you click on this, you open the tanks up, and you go to pool. This pool of players is everybody that you've previously assigned to be able to go here. You click OK, and now they're in it. If you want to manage the pool, you can look at this and say guild tanks, and you'll see, I'm not sure why Gnus Moss is listed as a guild tank. They shouldn't be, but I can add them to the list. And this list here is actually driven from this pool defaults interface. This is everybody who's in the guild. You'll notice, though, that there's only 5 players here. And they're all online, and they all have colors. If you open up your guild window and check the show offline members, then when you open up your pool defaults, you get everybody in your guild that's level 60 and been online in the last 3 weeks. That lets you do a lot better planning and lets you get everybody you want into the pool to make it easier to assign where you want. So anyhow, back to this. So we add our tanks. We're going to go to the pool, and we're going to add Droob. We're going to go to the pool, and we're going to add Hooligans, and leave that at that. If you click Announce, you'll notice that the announcement down here says R1.T. That's going to put R1 from this field, T, main tank. R1.P1 is going to be R1, P1, Droob. So when I hit Announce, the actual announcement comes out, main tank, Droob. Droob, Hooligans, Cha, pick up ads. I have Droob assigned to 2 roles, even though I said we shouldn't do that. He wouldn't have been there if it was done automatically. So let me switch this to Tank Me and hit Announce again. Now you'll notice that the main tank is Droob, Tank Me Daddy and Hooligans Cha, pick up ads, do not DPS the ads. Zug down the boss, run out when you get pulled in, don't forget to loot your quest items. Those are things that are just general announcements. Some of it's dynamic using the tagging system, which is documented in the GitHub. Other parts are static and just the same every time. If there were marks involved, you could click the Mark Players button and it would mark the players if the encounter was set to do that. An example of that is BWL Chromag. We typically have one person assigned to hand out sand. He is the sand monkey. If I hit Mark Players, it puts a moon over his head. Simple as that. That gives you the basics of the encounter planning. Once things are set up in the encounter planning, you can go up here, minimize this, and then you have your extended controls here. If you right-click on this button, it lets you pick which raid you're doing. Tonight, we're starting with Molten Core. When we start Molten Core, I select this, I hit the A button, and it'll say Skull, Droob healed by Friend, Cross, Hooligans Cha healed by Shamala Harris, Square, Tank Me Daddy healed by Father Kai. Those are the people that are assigned here. So you can see that I've been able to plan ahead and have this all set up to where it's quick and easy to announce who's doing what. If somebody's in a different role or you want to move which tank's on which, you can just drag and drop them or click and change who's there. And then you re-announce it, and it does the same thing. The RA button on the top of here is something similar, but it's for other people in the raid that are running the add-on. Currently, the only thing synchronized between people running the add-on are the ready checks. So if somebody who's not the raid leader clicks ready check, it'll ask the leader to run a ready check, and it will report the results. And the RA is the re-announce. So if you look here on Tank Me, If I click RA, it reannounces it. And it doesn't do it in raid warning because I'm not somebody who's promoted in the raid. But other than that, it's the same announcement that you've already seen. So back to here. Once we start pulling, the M button, this is for marking. In this case, trash would be marking the NPCs. So instead of trying to mark your players, if you click on one of the giants in Molten Core and click this, it will use your auto mark add-on and do the same thing as /am space mark. I will add some documentation later on how to tweak the auto mark to your best benefit because I found that it's actually very configurable. It's just not very well documented. Anyhow, we do some trash. We move on to the first boss. Here we are at Incendus. We want to do our announcement. We hit the announce button. It says what we've already configured. It tells everybody what they need to do. We've killed Incendus. We've now moved on to Lucifron. We hit the announce button. Same thing. Main tank, skull. I haven't configured this one. If we click on Lucifron, you'll notice that this is all empty. So, and my title literally says main tank in it, which it should not say that. Minor detail. But anyhow, you get the gist of that. This allows you to quickly navigate through the raid and announce what you're doing for each boss and make sure that the players know what their job is without you having to talk all the time. It's easy for you to read it out, but it's also there in writing for people who may have English as a second language or who may have missed it when you said it. That pretty much covers the basics of it. If you have any further questions, please hit me up in person, on Discord, or in-game. Thank you very much.